I done did some shit that you ain't never did. I done saw some shit that you ain't never seen. I done been some places you ain't never been. I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. Four nickel with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoot, I was another team. I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. Four nickel with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoot, I was another team.
I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't saw before. Spurred a nigga in the job before. Took off running from the law before. I was selling OG by the dollar store. Used to get that Reggie from Hilario. That was middle school, like in 6th grade. I was cutting the Philly with a switchblade. I knew I was destined for a big play. I knew I was destined for a mixtape. I been kicking flavors since the talent show. Had a fully loaded automatic flow. What's a fully loaded automatic flow? When I spit the verses like a calico. Watch me spit the verse like a calico. Run and let your mama and your daddy know. Seven shots. I am something to run and tell about. They thought I was smoking airplane gas, cause I'm jumping fly in the helicopter. 800 for the Louis Shades up in North Park just to look smart. Money caller with the T-top on the lawn horse and the push start.
I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. Four nickel with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoot, I was the other team. I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. Four nickel with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoot, I was the other team.
Plenty fuck nigga, no man give it up nigga. Shot it out, let it bust, hit him. Did it all for a check killer. I was broke, I was sick, digging licks in the brick with a stick. Have a split, serving nicks to a zip. Take a drill, 30 big boys in a big clip. Out of town, serving at the quick trip. Ain't no hoe, this fofo gon' blow. My grind big, you a small joke. I'm still into that mud, that wet dirt, give a fuck. I did the most in these damn streets, having news in these back streets. Ain't no nigga real like me. Hard time made a stiff G. Serving 80s just to eat. Mama called it cause the work cheap. Sucker niggas wanna murk me. Had to get it, had to go see. Let these niggas know it ain't peace. I'm a damn fool if you want these.
I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. Four nickel with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoot, I was the other team. I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. Four nickel with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoot, I was the other team.
We Japanese still. You getting cooked in front of your family? Like a Japanese meal. It's y'all soup the hibachi and none of you niggas can stop me. But can't help but watch me. Back again, man. We've been working, grinding, putting video after video after video out there for you guys so you guys can have the information. You guys can be loaded on the source material. Right now, we want to talk about E-m123, which is known in Jewish groups, which is known in Arabic groups, was found in African Americans. Yeah, you heard me right. It was found within African Americans. Because, see, a lot of you guys have been taught that we are isolated and our ancestry is not diverse. But as we've been going throughout this Black History Month, right, showing and proving that sub-Saharan Africans are not isolated groups. They're not homogenous. They're very heterogeneous, and the heterogeneity amongst them is great because of different elements and different migrations over millennia. So we've been proving that constantly back and forth with you guys throughout the last week. And I was just reading the Empires of the Medieval West African book, and a lot of things came up, like the Matsi, which we know have a Eurasian component. The people of Burkina Faso, the Fula, they all have Eurasian components. And we were just reading about those people, and, you know, the light bulbs were just going off my head. So let's go to this particular page in this book, and then we're going to go to this scientific article here and flesh out a couple things about E-m123. So in the book, Empires of the Medieval West Africa, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, it says this. It says other tombstones mention a second dynasty whose rulers had the title Zua, but only myths and legends describe Zua's origins. The Arab chroniclers describe a mythical figure named Zua Alayman, who is variously described as an Arab from Yemen. So a lot of Africanists hate this, and they try to buck up against this and say this is all mythicism and whatnot. But we actually can prove that there were people coming from Yemen, or at least haplogroups that are associated with that part of the world today, right? We can show that. So this might not be fictive. This might be grounded in reality. At least a portion of gene flow coming from Yemen are coming from Yemen-related peoples. So we're going to deal with that today. That's what inspired this video, actually. So before I get into that, let me close that out. We got the savant from the Levant in the building. What's going on?
Hey, shalom. Can't wait to get into today's information in live, especially if we're talking about I think Dua Hawass or Zua Hawass, I believe the name.
Yeah, Zua Layman, however you say it. Yeah. A lot of Africanists are upset with anything claiming that external people or external sources migrating into sub-Saharan Africa. They don't like that, but it's like that's part of the history. It's integral to that history, right? So we're going to deal with that today.
And we're going to talk about different haplogroups that African Americans have besides E-m123. Is that correct as well?
Yes. You're going to be dealing with downstream clade of E-m34, known as E-m123, which is still YAP, but it's not E-m1b1a. It's from our brother clade E-m1b1b.
Right. And we're also going to talk about the Fula as well, correct?
Yeah, you can bring the Fula in. I got a special video for the Fula dealing with their ability to digest milk. So okay. It's an article that I'm going to pay for, and I'm going to cover it in its entirety on the channel. So that's coming too.
Hey, Moore, you should jump on since we're going to talk about, these Yemenite populations, these Arabic sources and stuff like that. You know some stuff dealing with that, so you should come on up. And you got a particular Y DNA marker that's not E-m1b1a as well. So I think it'll be good if you came up.
Yeah, can't nobody say you a jungle nigga. I'm a jungle boy. I'm a jungle boy. Anyway, let's get to this real quick. So this is searching for the roots of the first African-American community that was published in Nature. We're not going to read this in its entirety, but we're going to let's get the highlights out of this, right? So I'm going to read the summation of the paper to you guys at first. San Basilio de Palenque is an Afro-descendant community near Cartagena, Colombia. Founded in the 16th century, the recognition of the historical and cultural importance of Palenque has promoted several studies, namely concerning the African roots of its first inhabitants. To deepen the knowledge of the origin and diversity of the Palenque parental lineages, we analyzed a sample of 81 individuals for the entire mtDNA control region, as well as 92 individuals for 27 YSTRs and 95 for 51 YSNPs. And 3 of these were actually Native American. So we do have people that are African American that actually do descend directly from ancient Native Americans. It says the results confirm the strong isolation of the Palenque with some degree of influx of Native American maternal lineages and European admixture exclusively mediated by men. Due to the high genetic drift observed, a pairwise F statistics analyzed with available data on African populations proved to be inadequate for determining population affinities. In contrast, when a phylogenetic approach was used, it was possible to infer the phylogeographic origin of some lineages in Palenque, contradicting previous studies indicating a single African origin. Our results evidence parental genetic contributions from widely different African regions, showing again that we are diverse. It's not a single source, is not homogeny here, it's heterogeneity that we're seeing amongst African Americans and sub-Saharan Africans as a whole, as we're going to see in this paper. So we're going to go down, matter of fact, we're going to hard search. So first, I want to do this. I want to show you this too, because you had some idiots talk about L281. Well, the mtDNA and Y chromosome haplogroups found in this study are described in the supplementary tables S2 and S3, along with corresponding haplogroup classifications. Differences in M-pop and haplogroup classifications were observed in only one sample, which was classified as L2A1 plus 16189 and 16192 by haplogroup and L2A1 by M-pop. So I want to look at L2 real quick before we get to E-m123, because L2 was found in Tanzania, and she had 38% Eurasian ancestry, and that's some people saying L2 has nothing to do with us. So let me read this. This was also found in this African American community that has been, roughly isolated within the last 300 years, right?
Yeah, African American. Yeah, go ahead. My bad.
Say it again. Go ahead. Bring it up.
No, I was going to say, African Americans carry L2A1 just like this sample we found. This person. I can pull that out unless you already have it. You probably have the same source that I have. But just for anyone to say that Bantu populations or West Central African populations or African American women don't carry L2A1 would be kind of ridiculous. Like we already have we already know that they do carry it. So
facts. Haplogroup L2, which has been associated with the Bantu expansion, which I keep, people say, oh, now they're saying it's associated with the Bantu expansion. That's why it has its present day dominance throughout Sub-Saharan Africa. So it has its most likely origin in Western Africa. Currently, L2 is spread throughout the continent, presenting high frequencies in Central, West, and Southeast Africa. 3 L2A, L2B, and L2D of the main branches from L2, L2A to L2E were found in Palenque. L2A is the most common and widespread clade in Sub-Saharan Africa and was described with the highest frequencies in Ghana, Sudan, and Mozambique. Approximately 92% of the L2 found in Palenque was attributed to the branches inside L2A, inside the networks of L2A1. That's the same clade that was found within the Tanzania sample and the Syrian sample. We do see that amongst African Americans. Again, we are very diverse, and we're not an isolated people. And no, Jungle Brother, aka True Historian, we're not jungle people either. That is very insulting. You deserve to be tied up in some basement and beat up with frozen meat for hours upon hours, and then waterboard. It says here,
elastically speaking,
it is possible to see a wide geographic dispersion typical of L2A lineages. In both cases, a star-like distribution emerges from a central cluster of shared haplotypes from several African regions. The 2 L2A1 samples from Palenque are 1 and or 2 mutational steps from the central cluster. All haplotypes from L2A1 plus 16189 are associated with a single founder who shares its sequences within samples from several African regions. The only L2A1 plus 143 plus 16309 haplotype from Palenque is separated by one position from West, Southwest, and East Africa haplotypes. A L2A1C3B2 sample from Palenque differs from the only African samples available for this haplogroup. So about 24 of these groups, of these people fell under L2, L2A, as we can see from this free African group. So L2A is among African Americans, and it was associated with the farmer, the sister that was a farmer, a part of a 11 farmer group at 38% Eurasian DNA, according to Skoglund 2017 et al. And it's associated with the Syrian one and all the other L2A groups. They all have a common ancestry. Showing you again, West Africans, Sub-Saharan Africans, their ancestry is not isolated to one group. From there, that's hard search, E-m123, E-m123. Okay, boom. So this is what the video is about, so we're going to get right into it. It says clade E is the most common clade in Africa and also present in European and Western Asian populations in accordance with the Polychaete African background. This clade represents 61.05% of wild lineages and 82.76% of those assigned to African origin. The haplogroup E-m123 is frequent in North Africa, particularly in Berber. And we've been reading a lot about the Sunata Berbers, the Sanhadas. A lot of those people have a history of Jewish traditions as well, which has been brought out a plethora of
Shout out
sources.
to North Africa. Shout out to the Amazigh.
Yeah, shout out to YAP. It says here, the Berber groups are, and it's also present in Iberia and southern Italy as Northwest African legacy. Why is that? Because of the Moorish invasion, the Moorish rulership that happened in Iberia, right? So we still see the legacy of the Moors via the Berber lineages and other lineages too. They did carry J markers with them into Africa, and they did carry some E1B1A markers with
Shout
them.
out to the Tuareg and the Fulani and the Hausa.
Yeah. Right, yeah, the Sahara, the Sunana. Well, we can go on and on and on about these different groups. The Soniki, right? We gotta bring them in because they were trading. Their trade reached northwards and eastwards all the way to Saudi Arabia, and all the way up into even Near Eastern countries. They was getting slaves from Egypt, and they were getting slaves from I think Turkey, Anatolia. So again, this far-reaching trade enterprise that these guys ran. So you can't limit them to just one area, as we're seeing here, because you got the progeny of these people in southern Italy and Iberia. It says, since no direct gene flow from North Africa has been reported, the presence of a haplogroup in Polychaete populations most likely resulted from European admixture. Nonetheless, a Northern African origin of E-m123 and Polychaete via Western Africa cannot be ruled out because that could be very possible, right? A European origin was also attributed to haplogroup E1B1B M123 lineages found in Polychaete. This haplogroup is absent in sub-Saharan Africa and frequent in Arabian populations from Northeast Africa and the Middle East. Now, let me go back. What's an Arabian country? What's a country that's in the Saudi Arabian locality? Yemen. So let's go back to this history of the Suwa, right? Let's go back to the Suwa real quick. What did it say about the Suwa? The Suwa. Where did he come from? It says other tombstones mention a second dynasty whose rulers had the title Zuwa, but only myths and legends describe Zuwa's origins. The Arab chroniclers describe a mythical figure named Zuwa Alayman, who is variously described as an Arab from Yemen. So where did this haplogroup come from? Right? Hold on, let me go back. What is it associated with? It says this haplogroup is absent in sub-Saharan Africa and frequent in Arabian populations from Northeast Africa and the Middle East. What else does it say about this haplogroup? It says this haplogroup also spread in Europe, although at low frequencies. In Iberia, it has been associated with Middle Eastern, North African, and Jewish ancestry. What is this doing in an African American community? If we're so isolated, why is it there? You know, they can't, you know, it's like the commercial say, nobody knows. You know. So let me go down to the bottom of this, right? There's a chart here. We're gonna click the where it says most likely African origin of mtDNA and Y chromosome lineages detected in Polychaete. So they actually assign an African origin of where these guys pretty much were probably captured and then dispersed right into the Americas. Probably first in the Caribbean, then redistributed into Polychaete, which is in Central America. So we can look and see where they assign this, and you can see the colors for different portions of the coast of Africa. Usually South America, they usually get more Angolan slaves, or around here south of the Congo. But this particular clade here, E1B1B M35, and then you see all of his progeny here. See, so every time you see an X, it does not mean excluding. It could mean ancestral to, and it's showing you all these clades, which includes E-m123, and it has a frequency amongst this community at 5.2%, with 3 individuals found with it. Right? So, where does it say they believe it came from? Between Senegambia and the Bight of Bonin. Now, Senegambia is the yellow portion in the western coast of Africa, and then the Bight of Benin is green. So, somewhere in between this area.
No slaves came from Senegambia. That's too close to North Africa.
Actually, the first bunch of slaves were coming from that region. And what's important about this is what we were just reading about Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. They would be around these regions as well. As we've seen in the book, they give maps of their distribution. So hold on, let's see if I can just pull that up real quick. Where the Songhai Empire was, and where the Ghana Empire. So here's a great map here. Let me close that.
Oh yeah,
out.
the old West African kingdoms. Yeah, they were all in the Sahel. Yep.
Right. So that fits perfectly with what we see here. This green green colored portion is what we call the Mali Empire.
Yeah.
So they would have been in this region here.
That's what most people forget. People think that the kingdom of Ghana and the kingdom of Mali and the kingdom of Ouagadougou and the kingdom of what's the other one? Tukulor, and just all these other kingdoms were all on the west coast of Africa, close to places like the Congo or whatever. But no, they were further north. They were a lot closer to North Africa in the Sahel than they were way down in sub-Saharan Africa near the coast of modern-day Nigeria and modern-day Ghana and modern-day Benin. They recently actually those maps were kind of made by Europeans. But so yeah.
Right. So you see Janae, we read a lot about that. Timbuktu, we see Gaio along the Niger River. Al-Hust, which was first captured by the ancient Ouagadougou or Ghanaian Empire, that has nothing to do with the modern Ghana, right? This is where they were at. So maybe there is some truth to that legend of Zua. And matter of fact, the stone inscriptions is not legend material; they're actually stones. So they have Zua in there. They were called that. And they try to trace it back to this guy that supposedly came from Yemen. Maybe he did have E-m123. We don't know for sure, but it's possible, right? It's very, very possible. And I wanted to cover it mid the episode, but I said, you know what? Let me do another live stream and just cover that, because you could have E-m123 in the West Coast.
It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible.
So again, let's go back to the article. Stop that. Bring this stream back up. In figure 2 of the article, it says here, again, they came from Senegambia, in between Senegambia and the Bight of Benin, which is this wide region here. You could have E-m123 people come in, or it could have been Sephardic Jewish children. That's a possibility. They probably were carrying E-m123, or it could have been like the oral testimony says, that carrying these Arab lineages over here. That's various possibilities, but again, it's still plausible. And as you can see, it says between Senegambia and the Bight of Benin is where you're most likely getting these haplogroups from. Is where they derive from. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Avery, if you're still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that when it comes to the west coast of Africa, it seems to be pretty diverse. Like I see that it has haplogroup B, which is that's a non-YAP marker, YAP negative. And then I see E1A, and in the YAP game we have a member with E1A. And that's not a E1B1A marker. And then, of course, we're talking about EM35, and that is definitely in West Central Africa. And then we got RV88, also in West Central Africa. So it seems to be pretty diverse. We can at least account for like 5 different male Y chromosomes, probably more if we did more testing.
Right, right. Yeah, there's a lot of diversity here. Like you pointed out, the E-m123, and they got that coming from Upper Guinea, and they also got it coming from the Bight of Benin, and between the Bight of Benin and the Bight of Biafra. This is where these people are coming from, and we know the famous Dogon are associated with that haplogroup. And then you have slaves coming from Luongo. And we all know about Luongo and being in this community because we know about the Luongo Jews, right? So you do have slaves coming from that direction, that slave port. And they're E1B1A M191 and B2A M150 clades coming from that region. So it's very, very interesting stuff, man.
By the way,
Go ahead.
could you pull up a map really quick, or I can, but a map of West African kingdoms? Because I just want to show people all of the different kingdoms that were once in West Africa and where they were in terms of location. And because you showed earlier, I think Tukulor, was it?
Takurur.
Takrur. So
Yeah.
this one would be all of the 3 major or 4 major West African kingdoms. There should be several maps on Google Images.
I got one here. If you guys can see that right there.
Well, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a few of them. Yeah. So could you zoom in on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to get you a bigger one here. Look, let's see. So you got
There. We got
Mali.
Yep, Mali in the Sahel, Songhai,
Songhai.
Ghana, Wolof, and Kamen Borno.
Yeah.
And now, really quick, Yashub, can you pull up a map of the Sahel? Type in Sahel map, and don't exit that image. We're going to go back and forth to kind of show people where all of this is located.
So here's a good one here. Let me get this one.
So y'all see where? Yeah.
I'm gonna get a big image of it. Yeah, here we go.
So just keep in mind where you see those kingdoms. And now look at this. This is the Sahel region of Africa. So that includes Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, and Sudan and Eritrea. So all of these West African kingdoms, if you really, a more proper name would be Sahelian kingdoms. And that's where a lot of the ancestors, more than likely, of African Americans today, and even West Central Africans that are currently in Nigeria and Ghana and Benin, they were further north in the Sahel, where there would have been contact between Berbers and Arabs and stuff like that. And we can see that with the Sahel, how that Yemenite would have traveled to Western Africa, because the Sahel region was it was a perfect zone for travel. Can you actually pull up one more map of the Sahel, and this time let it be a natural geography map so people can kind of see?
I got you.
In terms of the fauna and flora that would have been present in the Sahel. So that's so this is the Sahel, and that orange you see, it would have been arid, and it would have had savannas and tropical trees and stuff like that. So it would have been a good place for people traveling. It's not in the Sahara Desert. It borders the Sahara Desert, and it borders the jungles of sub-Saharan Africa. So it's a perfect zone for travel, and this is exactly where West African kingdoms were located, and exactly where the ancestors of some African Americans would have came from.
So you're saying that most, so a lot of these people here didn't have nothing to do with the jungle culture?
They had to deal with the Sahelian culture, the Sahel. They
Not,
bordered the
not
jungle and
the,
they bordered North Africa.
so they wasn't jungle boys just trying to make it.
We were in the
Jungle
plains.
boy.
We were in the plains and the savannas of Africa,
Oh, okay.
and in some cases the deserts. Some
I'm,
of
I'm
us
just
have literally been in the desert. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to make sure, man. I was told that we all jungle niggas, bro.
Nah, we're not pygmies and khoisains and stuff.
Our favorite movie is Jungle Book. It's the bare necessity. That's our favorite goddamn movie, bro. And our favorite juice is Jungle Juice. And we used to play in the Jungle Gym.
Every time you say jungle juice, I think of like an orange brownish liquid. I mean a green brownish liquid. My bad. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah.
With like moss and stuff.
Yeah, man. So I mean, it's just very eye opening. A lot of people just gotta just read it for what it is. All you guys trying to esoterically read stuff, bro. Like stop esoterically reading into things and just accept what it is. Accept what it is. This is where these people were. They weren't isolated. They were going west to east and north to south with trading. So obviously these people were
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to ask you to do one more thing. Pull up a map of trade routes, Sahelian trade routes, and this will be the last one. Because when you said trading, that kind of popped in my head. People should kind of see that.
Right, Sahelian trade routes.
Because some people seem to believe that it was impossible to travel in the Sahara Desert, but it was not impossible. If you knew the trade routes, if you knew where you was going, you could have easily navigated the Sahara Desert. There was oases where there was oasis where people could rest and travel. Sometimes towns and cities were built around these places. So you can just stop and there's a good map. You can just stop and camp while you go to your next destination. There was even entire ethnic groups that lived in the Sahara, like the Garamantes. And the descendants of the Garamantes are the Tuareg, who still live in many of those desert places. But you should have the map pulled up. Go ahead.
The Garamantes would have been up here in Libya. And they were going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, oasis to oasis, just like the Phoenicians. We read last night, the Phoenicians would have went oasis to oasis, bringing down their culture, their animals, the material culture and stuff like that, their skills and know-how. That's why that 3000 BC period is very important. I mean, 3,000 years ago. That time frame is very important because we're starting to see a lot of these things coming from the north and coming from the Levant and then coming down through the North Africa and then down into the Sahelian sub-Saharan zones.
Exactly. And so for people to say that, oh, the Sahara Desert was a natural barrier that prevented black sub-Saharan Africans from going north. No, that's not true. People were traveling back and forth. When the Sahara was green, there was populations there. And when the Sahara turned into a desert, people still navigated it. There's known trade routes. This is a historical fact.
Mm-hmm. They adapted to it. And they brought in what they call fogaras, which a fogara is an irrigation system. So they already knew that because it's coming from the Middle East. They had already adapted ways to live in drier climates. Then they bring that fogara system from the Near East into North Africa, and then it penetrates down to the Sahelian regions, as we see here. To the left.
Zoom in on the Sahel right there, you shoot, actually. Yeah, zoom in a little bit more. Yeah. So it's funny how it all stops right there in the Sahel. You see Timbuktu, look at like 5 different lines going to Timbuktu. Now, can you switch over from this map to the West African Kingdoms map if you still have that one up? And I'm going to show you all something. Boom. Exactly where those trademarks stop is exactly where the West African kingdoms begin. Ain't that something? Songhai, Cameroon, Borno, Ghana, Mali, Wolof, all the trade maps and trade routes go right there. Go back to the trade routes map really quick. You see? Perfect match. Actually, can you zoom out a little bit? It's a little too close. You see that? It goes all right there in the Sahel. Perfect lineup.
Right. There's a Takrir, which was said to be a lot of Jews in this region in the Middle Ages. A lot of Jews in Takrir, and we know there's Jews up north here.
Oh yeah, all throughout North Africa. It's even in the
Hmm.
Bible, Serene, Simon of Serene,
Hmm. So
or
that's why
Syrian.
our history is a lot more diverse than these dudes will allow for. Then you see Burkina Faso right here, right above modern day Ghana. Burkina Faso, a lot of these people have Eurasian components that date very old, date thousands of years ago. How did they get that? Most likely because these people were not here. They were up here in the northern regions, mingling, trading, and doing what they have to do up here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you start seeing farming come down later because these people are already associated with oasis agriculture and agrarian lifestyles. They understood irrigation. They understood metallurgy. All this stuff was already in the Sahara, already in the Levant, which all these things trace their origin to. It goes from the Levant into Egypt, into North Africa. That's how it goes.
Yep.
So when you see these oral testimonies and it's saying, hey, we have an external origin, there's even Ghanaian people that say they come from the north or they come from the east or whatever. That's true. Like we can look at their genes and posit that. Their genes are showing that.
Exactly.
And there you go. We read about that Ogdagust or Ogdagos that they have here, right north of Takrir. Ghana conquered that region, as we read. We see the Kumbi Saleh, which is supposedly the capital of ancient Ghana, right? As you can see, Ghana is more northern in the Sahelian zone. Modern day Ghana is more down here, as you can see, or down to the south. But
all the way to the south.
yeah, right.
Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was a lot of those people in the Sahel got pushed further south because of jihads. There was a lot of tension between Jews and Muslims actually in West Africa when Askia Muhammad took power because he told people to, don't trade with the Jews, don't do this with the Jews, don't do that. And so there was a lot of persecution and stuff like that. And for him to have a decree against the Jews in West Africa goes to show you that there must have been a significant amount of them for him to have a whole decree. Like I highly doubt it was only like 1 or 2 Jews in West Africa. He had to do a decree like that. Had to be at least a couple of thousand,
Yeah, and these are some of the trade routes that Mansa Musa would have utilized. Let me show you guys something. So let me go back and show you that these people had far-reaching kingdoms. Like these kingdoms had reach. So when you look at, let me open this up. Boom. Back in this book here, as you can see here, Mansa Musa sat on a large ebony throne that was on a raised platform with elephant tusks along the sides. Behind the king stood about 30 slaves. West Africans have been dealing with slaves long before Europeans were dealing with African slavery. So I've been stressing that because some of you guys are listening to Africanists and colorists and they're racist and they try to make it seem like an us versus them thing and slavery exclusive to a white versus black dynamic, and it's not true, right? He had slaves, but he had slaves from Turkey and Egypt.
That's very interesting, actually.
So he had slaves. That would mean people from Anatolia and people from Egypt would have been in Mansa Musa's kingdom. Right? They would have been there because he had important slaves from there. Right? So the history is more than what they will have you believe. And when I say they, I'm talking about Afrocentrics. And BHIs too, because BHIs got a problem with that too. They have this whole idea of homogeneity and racial purity, which does not exist because people move, migrate, absorb, and adopt cultures. They do a lot of things. They're not static. These people are not static. They're isolated. They're not unchanging, as we read in the paper the other day. Matter of fact, let me pull that up real quick just to remind y'all. Maybe y'all forgot. Let's go.
I'll be back, Yeshu. Give me a few minutes.
Yeah, I got you. So maybe y'all forgot the other day when we brought that up, right? So let me just bring that up, man. I'm going to hammer that in y'all head all week, man. I'm going to hammer that in your head. Shout out to Abu them because they gave a paper that I wasn't aware of. I went to that paper. I was like, oh, snap, they got some good juicy stuff in this paper. But anyway, let me go to the paper we went through this week dealing with gene flow inside of Africa. Gene flow inside sub-Saharan Africa. I believe that's what it was called. Sub-Saharan Africa. And then I just want to go to a key part. Here it is, admixture into and within sub-Saharan Africa. And again, I'll drop the link again for anybody that doesn't have this paper that can have it. Here it is. Boom. You should see it pop and materialize into the chat right there. Boom. And here's the title. So within this paper, we're going to hard search here in a minute. You know how we do. So we go here. Hard search unchanging. All right here. On the basis of our analysis, none of the African populations in our study has remained isolated and unchanged over the last 4,000 years. But if you listen to these Africanists, these Afrocentrics, these pro-blackers, as I call them, the pro-blacks, really they're just white supremacists and Aryan nation people in blackface. They will try to say that you've been unchanged, stationary, and static for thousands of years, but that's not what the genetics is showing us, and that's not what the overall scope of history is showing us, right? Because again, on the basis of our analysis, none of the African populations in our study has remained isolated and unchanged over the last 4,000 years. We look at the Masi, the Fula, the Yoruba, all of them have Eurasian components within them that date to certain periods. The Mandi people that we just read about that contributed to, I believe, the Seniki empires and whatnot. These people also have a Neolithic Levantine component. The Bantus have a Bronze Age Levantine component, which makes sense because all of their technology and a lot of the animal husbandry, the irrigation, and some of the culture is deriving from the Levant, making its way to Egypt through North Africa, then making its way to South, making its way to Sub-Saharan Africa, as we've been covering all week. All right. It says here, the major signals of admixture in our analysis relate to the movement of Eurasian ancestry back into Africa and the movement of genes south and east from Central West Africa, likely as a result of the Bantu expansion. All right. So we've been covering a lot on this, man. And again, just to recapitulate, we showed E-m123 here. Coming from, I'm going to bring it back here. Somewhere else I want to go with this, right? And figure 2 of this article here, and I'll post this article again in Nature. Figure 2, these slaves are descendants of slaves most likely came between the Senegambia and the Bight of Benin, where these empires were in these Sahelian zones, where the Empire of Ghana and Mali and Songhai once ruled. And maybe there were E-m123 people involved with that. All right. Now, let's talk about E-m123. If you go to Discover Family Tree DNA, and I'll give you guys a link to that, you can get some good information on it. Remember, it was said that the Zua king came from Yemen. What do we see E-m123 related to in modern population density? You do see 113 of the people that test with family tree DNA that have this clade coming from Yemen, as we see here. We do see that, right? E-m123, and they're coming from here. And of course, you do see it in Europe, Poland, and other countries, Saudi Arabia. You see it there. This haplogroup is related to Jews. This haplogroup is related to Arabian peoples. So that history, the oral testimony could have some truth to it. And it could have something to deal with E-m123. And as we can see, these people are not isolated. Let me get another paper for you guys, right? And you can see through the migration map, ancient burial grounds or what they've seen E-m123 clays related with them. Of course, you're going to see E-m35 in the Levant, right, with the Natufians and the PPNB and PPNA pottery cultures, right? You see an ancestral path here, E-m123, and then you can see it all the way to its clay here. All right. So, with that being stated, then you can see the time tree here. Let me pull this paper up. I know I downloaded it again this week, so let me go to my downloads, pull this up, and read from it for a minute here. Because there's something I want to bring out about this. I think it's this one from the African AGVP. So I want to share this with you guys because I put it in a PowerPoint before. But I'll just take you guys directly to the source. No, I don't want that one. I want this one. Let's see if this one's it. Bear with me for a minute while I get this. And no, that's not it. So just let me go to AGVP and just re-download it because it looks like I don't have it. So the AGVP project showed Eurasian admixture in the Mansi and the Yoruba and even the Igbo, right? Being less than like 7.5 thousand years ago. Very old stuff, right? So if I go to AGVP 2014, let me just type that in. Right here, African Genome Variation Project. So let me put this in the chat so you guys can have it from PMC. A lot of free articles are on PMC. So we're going to do that. Boom. And give you guys that one. And here's the title. The African Genome Variation Project Shapes Medical Genetics in Africa. And within this article, when you go to the supplemental PDF, it deals with a lot. It deals with the Eurasian admixture components. For instance, like if we go here now, so before I get there, I believe that blue is denoting Eurasian components here. The Wolof, Mandinka, and Jola, and the Fula all have it. Right, and the purple, I believe, is hunter-gatherer admixture that the Yoruba, Igbo, and the Gagumbi all have. Right, so let me go down. So from there, let me stop sharing that. Let me go down and get the supplemental, and then share that with you guys, so you guys can have that as well. Again, I've already covered this in the past video on Eurasian gene flow into sub-Saharan African populations. I did a whole PowerPoint on it. So we're going to go into this supplementary file and then go directly to the point of relevance. And if anybody doesn't know how to get there, scroll down until you see supplementary information, or you can just hard search it. So within this paper, what we're going to do is hard search isolated. Or let's see, isolate. I know I got it from this paper in a PowerPoint I did earlier. Because again, what we're trying to do is combat what a lot of people say, especially Africanists. Again, like I said, they use these white supremacist talking points to try to say that, as in their words, keep African. No, Africans are very diverse. I don't know how do you read this material and come to any other conclusion, especially when you guys say stuff like the keeping Africa, and you guys know that Africa is the most genetically diverse continent on the planet. How do you explain that? How do you explain that? So here's under the Igbo section, ancient hunter-gatherer admixture. Igbo, we go down here, it might be here because I fell in on the hard search right here. It says here the finding is of historical relevance as it may provide important insights in the prehistory of Africa and its origins. It says here the highest amplitude of LD decay was produced in a combination of the Kigali and Sardinia referencing population dating to 300 years ago. So even the Igbo are showing signs of Eurasian admixture. Let me go down. If I can't find it, I'll just go to the PowerPoint and just pull it up and go to the relevant point that I want here in a minute. So somewhere in this paper here, as you can see, Eurasian admixture here in the Fula dating to 100 to 150. That's about 3,000 years ago. For them, the Jola also have it dating to 150 to 325 range. They also have the Wolof have it. The Mandinka have it, right? So let's go down. It says here, although our analysis suggests that modern-day Khoisan populations may be closest representative to admixing Hunagata and admixture in Igbo, there is no historical evidence of Khoisan-like populations existing in the region within the last 2,000 years. Moreover, there is no evidence of click consonants and languages in this region. However, the historical evidence is incomplete. Archaeological evidence from burials in Gobero and southwestern Chad suggests the presence of distinct Hunagata populations in this region during the mid-Holocene period, when conditions were human and foraging conditions were optimal for survival. These graves suggest the presence of Hunagata populations with distinct morphological features, including tall stature, not typical of present-day pygmy populations in Central Africa. Archaeological findings of distinct rock art are also consistent with the presence of such populations in Central and Western Africa prior to the Bantu settlements. So before the Bantu settlements, what we had here were mainly hunter-gatherers, most likely A and B related groups. This archaeological evidence dates to the Neolithic period. Collectively, the genetic and archaeological evidence suggests that hunter-gatherer populations may have inhabited western parts of Africa, as well as eastern parts in southern Africa 10,000 years ago. Our findings provide new insights into the ancient hunter-gatherer admixture in Africa. A critical next step will be to identify the deep sequence of multiple populations across the region to help refine the source and complexity of this admixture. Additionally, given the extensive migration and replacement of ancient populations across Africa, it is likely that present populations do not represent ancient hunting and foraging and inhabiting these parts of Africa. Why is this the case? It's because, like we've been saying over and over, these people are not isolated, they're very migratory. And as we read in the peopling of the Green Sahara, you would have had E-m123 markers residing in the north and then coming down south and replacing these groups. Replacing the hunter-gatherer groups, displacing and replacing them, whether by killing or just outbreeding them or just taking their women, stuff of that nature, right? That's what happened primarily in the Bantu expansion, right? It says this highlights the need to explore archaeological sites in these regions as the study of ancient DNA could provide important insights into ancient populations located into the region during different periods, as has been discussed previously. So let me see if I can find the isolated portion too as well. You know, let me just open up my PowerPoint. Yeah, here it is here, Eurasian gene flow. I'll just go over that real quick for you guys. Let me move this up here. Boom. Stop this screen and then share this one. All right. So we all know about Ramesses III and what 23andMe says about him. He says Ramesses III's paternal lineage belongs to EV38. There are a lot of people that are upset behind this. They want a further analysis of his DNA to change the result. Right? They wanted to say something else. But as it stands now, he's EV38. He's E1B1A. Which your line also stems. You and Ramesses III share an ancient paternal line ancestor who probably lived in North Africa or Western Asia. And here's a chart from that AGVP project. As you can see, the Igbo have an old hunter-gatherer mixture. The Matsi have an old Eurasian admixture, and the Yoruba have an old Eurasian admixture. So let's go down here. This is what I was looking for in that supplemental. It says, in addition, there is also strong evidence that these West African populations were not isolated and that there was bidirectional gene flow between East and West Africa for a significant proportion of history. For example, a study based on Y chromosome markers in thousands of individuals showed considerable population movement and demographic expansion across the present-day Sahara during the recent Green Sahara period that ended 5,000 years ago. So, this is from African Genetic Diversity Provides Novel Sights into Evolutionary History and Local Adaptations. Michael Riddick, what's your haplogroup, brother? Matter of fact, I will drop the link and you can come on and explain what your haplogroup is, and then we can see what you're working with, because right now I'm shooting in the dark. All right, let me get some more out of this. It says here, this distinctive Eurasian admixture appears to have occurred over at least 3 time periods with ancient admixture in Central West Africa. For example, the Yoruba of Nigeria occurring approximately 7.5 and 10.5 thousand years ago. Older admixture in East Africa, for example, Ethiopia occurring 2.4 and 3.2 thousand years ago, and more admixture between 0.15 and 1.5 thousand years ago in some East African Kenyan populations. Hey, Michael Riddick, let me know what haplogroup assignment you got, or maybe you can show the people what you got. Subsequent studies based on the LDDK. So I put the wrong source here. This is actually the source I shared with you guys, right? It says here, subsequent studies based on LDDK in haplotype sharing in an extensive set of African and Eurasian populations confirm the presence of Eurasian signatures in West, East, and Southern Africans. They all have it. In the West, in addition to Niger-Congo speakers from the Gambia and Mali, the Masi from Burkina Faso showed the oldest Eurasian admixture event at approximately 7,000 years ago. In the East, these analyses inferred Eurasian admixture within the last 4,000 years in Kenya with the Chanyi and the Kwama, showing possible South Asian admixture that may have been facilitated by the medieval trade across the Indian Ocean. All right. So the brother says he's CTS 3764. All right, so what does your 23andMe say exactly? 23andMe says you have what exactly? Let me go to Genetic Homeland and type in your clade real quick. So if you go to genetic, anybody can go there. I'll put the link in the chat. So you go to Genetic Homeland and type that clade in, or you can go to discover.familytreedna, either or. And you want to go to DNA pedigree. Let me show you what I'm doing. So this is Genetic Homeland, Michael Riddick. And here's the link to it. All right, click the DNA pedigree here, top. All right, let me go down. And then let's type in your clade here. Your clade is CTS 3764. 4.1. Let's see if we can find something on that. So you come from E-m123. You're E1A. You're E1A, bro. You're E1A. P147. Then you go to M32. You're M132. You're a downstream marker M132, so that puts you in E1A. The doggone of Mali are known to have your clade. He says all over. He said place Nigeria, Gambia. Yeah, they would be there in sub-Saharan Africa. Yeah, they're all over today. Well, you know the doggone have a high prevalence of E1A. I can show you that real quick. Oh. So let me go. Doggone E1A haplogroup. You even have Jewish people with E1A too, right? People argue how they got it, but they have it. Let's see. E132. E1A has been found in the Guanchi from the Canary Islands and the Bimi Bapi from El Hireo that has been dated to the 10th century CE. Let's see. See, the doggone Amali have it at 45%. I'm just looking at the wiki, y'all. This ain't nothing special, but the doggone Amali have it at a frequency of 45%. So almost half of them have it. And then you see it in the people of Guinea-Bissau at about 34%. Guinea-Bissau, Cameroon, about 20%. They're saying it's within the Hausa. Sudan at about 16%. Guinea-Bissau at 12%, and the Gambia at 12%, and then Sudan again under the Fulbe people at 12%, and Burkina Faso at 10%. So that's your distribution today. Then look, you got some people in Italy here. Is this Athens above mainland Greece? What is this here? You got some distribution here. You got it here in Northwest Africa. In Northern Africa, you got some E1A there. You said lots of Fulani with it, huh? Which were Sahelian people. They were traveling. They were migratory. He says the Sahara, we have it as well. We've been reading about those people and their history. These people all have Eurasian admixture as well. And you do have Jewish people with E1A too. Watch this. Jewish E1A. See, look, if you go to jewishdna.net, you do have Jewish people that have an E1A marker. I do got a paper too. I gotta find it. I remember I read it because a brother wanted me to do a whole lesson on E1A, and I did it. And I read that paper. I just had to dig up that paper. Or you guys can just go find the video, man. As y'all can see right here, Jewish group branches of E1A. The Jewish branches can be grouped according to their Y-DNA characteristics. These characteristics are often related to a period between 10,000 years before present to 4,000 years before present. Some branches have a founding father effect in the period outside the Middle East, which gives information on the location of the ancestor at the time of the founding father. For other branches, it's more likely the ancestor were in the Middle East, where in most cases no founding father effect took place and population growth was continuous. An overview of the Jewish groups of branches is present. Characteristics. This group has only one branch, the E1A M44 ancestor, 3,800 years before present, has several descending branches near the late Bronze Age collapse. One branch has descending branches in Lebanon, and this one is the Jewish branch. You see that? As you can see, you do have E1A amongst Jews. According to jewishdna.net, and I just gave y'all the link to that. Now the video that I covered some of this stuff on, let me go to my page, Genesis 49ers, and then search E1A. Because I know I did a whole video because the brother, I said, bro, if you show me your DNA and prove that you got E1A, I do a video, and he showed it, so I had to do it. Look right here. There's the video. E1A haplogroup, YAP phylogeny. So just go watch this video, and we covered that a couple months ago, about 5 months ago. Yeah, no one really knows the origin. T and Crumpin says Lebanon could have moved around with Phoenicians, could explain presence in Greece too, and along Mediterranean. Yeah, most likely it could have done all those things, right? And here's the other video I did: Eurasian migrations into Africa. That's when I covered that PowerPoint that I was sharing with you guys today. We do a lot. We cover a lot, man. We cover a lot. The genetic legacy of E1B1B Israelites. I know y'all get mad when I make stuff like Jewish people are authentic Levantines. That pisses people off. I don't give a damn. Matter of fact, I'm the head chairman of the I don't give a damn committee. Garfield stopped behind and cozy. The Green Sarin talk we just did recently. I think Ngozi came on that day. A hybrid praise says the doggone have the highest levels of E1A in West Africa. I call it the haplogroup of the Elamites and Chaldeans. I guess, brother. But anyway, if we go to the Chadic, let me pull up the Chadic paper here in a minute. Chadic. This is give y'all something to chew on here. I think it's this one. There's 2 papers on it. So there's one called The Genetic History of Chad. Then there's another one. Let me see if it's this one. Yeah, you do. You actually do. I don't know what JMatch is showing you, but as we just read, you do have markers in that region. So just like we have E1B1A markers in Palestine, right? So, yeah. At the end of the day, we all YAP. All YAP. We all ultimately share the same common male ancestors that were the first ones with the YAP, which separates us from everyone else, right? So this paper is dealing with the genetic history of Chad. That's another one, man. There's another one I want to get that talks about matter of fact, why am I doing this? Let me go to Genesis 49's resources. That's the whole purpose of the page. King James, how you gonna say E1A is Bantu but not doggone? We just showed that the doggone are E1A. That about half of them are E1A. Remember, these haplogroups cut across ethnicities, cut across geography, language groups, cultures. So you can't constrain people to one group of people or one language classification. We cut across all those things. That's humanity in general, brother. Let me see if I can find this real quick, y'all. No, I just posted it. Yeah, it is in that one, genetic history of Chad. So I put it here. And if you look at this, you can tell that there were Eurasians coming into Africa. It's just simple. Very simple stuff. It says, we called the Y-DNA and mitochondrial DNA haplogroups from whole genome sequences of 11 Chadians. Among the patriline's, the Lyell possessed 2 B1 and 1 R1. The Tubu possessed 2 E1, B1, B1, B2, and 2 R1s. Now, R1s are not indigenous to sub-Saharan Africa, and these R1s most likely, the V88 ones, most likely came from the Villabrunna culture in Italy, which was more widespread before the Yamnaya expansion. You probably had more R1B we know we found it in the Balkans and Eastern Europe as well, right? It says here, in the Sahara possessed 2 E1B1A7A. You see a lot of that in the Fulani. All 11 matrilineals were of the L macro haplogroup with 5 L0A and 1 L1B, 5 L3 haplogroups. Although underpowered, these data suggest a relative ancestor of non-African patrilines, i.e. sex-biased gene flow. We also call Y-DNA haplogroups from the Sahelian genotype data. The frequency of R1 was 12.5% in the Sudanese Arabs, 33.3% in the Dasa, and 50% in the Kanembu. The frequency of T, another patriline, is indicative of Eurasian immigration, was 44.4% in the Daza. So we know that there were Eurasians coming into sub-Saharan Africa because we see the progeny of these Eurasians, like T and R1 markers there. And then you got your E1B1B markers with the Tobu or the Tobu. You know? Anyway, what else, man? So that's from the genetic history of Chad. Let me just drop that in the chat. So that's the paper here. So anybody saying that, oh no, Eurasia didn't go into West Africa. And here's another thing too. It wasn't just a one-way thing, because we know that the Guinea fowl, most likely, as we read last night, had its origin in West Africa. And we see the Guinea fowl in North Africa, and we see it in Europe. That shows that people in the South was trading northwards too. Just as we just showed those trade routes. They were going north. Mansa Musa had slaves from Turkey and Egypt. They were going north too. Ezra bin Khazar the Hebrew. Matter of fact, I'm going to open up the board. Anybody come in here? I'm going to open up the panel. Anybody come in here? If you want to contest what was brought out today, if you want to share your thoughts or whatever, boom, you can join. StreamYard link is in the chat. Ivry going to answer all your questions. Ivry, I know you're there, brother. Okay, Healing Water Sound Therapy says, I'm trying to understand if Jewish people are J. Who do you believe they are? Are the same as us with E markers? Well, here's the thing. Jewish people are an amalgamation of people, right? And the Bible tells you that ancient Israelites were an amalgamation of people, i.e., the mixed multitude. So, yes, you can have J markers that are Jews, E markers that are Jews, Q markers that are Jews. You know, the J and E are just the most ancient components in that Levantine region, because the E markers are there since Neolithic times. We know that because of Natufis. And we know that because of PPNB and PPNA cultures. We know they were there already. We know that's established. And then later on, J markers come from the Transcaucasian region above and then penetrate the Levant. Most likely Hurrians and other related groups, the Karaxis culture, which we know did come from the Transcaucasian region. And they began to absorb and adopt Afro-Asiatic, and then later on developing Semitic languages. And then that population will become Jews, right? That population become Canaanites and then Jews. So, well, they Canaanites, what they got to do with Jews? The Israelites mixed with the Canaanites. The Bible tells you that. The Bible says, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you right here, Judges 3, verse 5. It says it in a lot of places, actually, but Judges 3, verse 5 or 3, verse 6, wherever it's at. It's very quick with it. So let me go there real quick. So Judges, let's just type in Judges chapter 3, and I like reading from the NLT or the GNT. So share this tab. So if you go to Judges 3, it says here, verse 5. So the people of Israel lived among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, and they intermarried with them. Israelite sons married their daughters, and Israelite daughters were given in marriage to their sons, and the Israelites served their gods. So the Bible is telling you that the Israelites have a Canaanite component. So a lot of those J markers that were in Canaan, as we seen J1P58 amongst these early Canaanites, even before the advent of Israelites, before they become a nation, they will have become or became a part of the Israelite nexus because they mixed and married with them. That's just a part of the narrative, man. That's a part of the narrative. So yes, you're gonna have Jay playing a major role in early Israelites and modern Israelites. So hopefully that answers your question. Healing Waters Sound Therapy. Let's see. The link is in the chat, brothers, if y'all want to come on. What else y'all saying here? Let's see. J Guy and the Doggone is 49%. E1B1A as well. Anytime you see E1A, you see E1B1A without fail. Yeah, it seemed like they traveled together. Laban says there likely would have been a minority of foreign non-Jacob haplogroups in ancient Israel, but the mixed multitude in Ger were clearly counted as non-Israelites in the text. Yeah. They would have been a melting pot, man. What paper are you talking about, Jay Guider? I believe all of this is a culmination. Like when you see a lot of these African nations, including Egypt, even though Egypt's Near Eastern, right? It's classified as Near Eastern. You see all these as a culmination of spreading and diffusing a lot of these ideas, culture, or cultic practices like circumcision, ministration, separation. A lot of these things you see being common is because a lot of these E-carriers, YAP carriers, a lot of these people that were influenced by or part of those early groups traveling back and forth from the Near East to North Africa spread those ideas and culture with them. So now we just see the product of that, the progeny of that, the byproduct, if you will. A hybrid praise, I don't know about that one. You got to show me that one. E1A was also found among the ancient Dravidians of India. I would like to see that source there. So yeah. King James says closest modern ancestor on my Y marker is Yoruba. What is your Y marker, King James? What is your Y marker? Maybe you should share with your Y marker. While you do that, what I'll do is I'll go back to that PowerPoint here. Hold on. Go back to that PowerPoint and share with you guys what I was talking about earlier. You go up. This is from a paper called Biomolecular Insights in the North African Related Ancestry, Mobility, and Diet in the 11th Century Al-Andalus, written in 2021, Sylvia et al., published on Nature. And she gives 4 clades here, and 3 of them are designated as Palestinian. They're all E1B1A. So E1, B1, A1, A1, D1, and then E1, B1, A1, 1A also classifies Palestinian, and E1, B1, A1, A1, A Palestinian. So they believe the founder effect had its founder effect in Palestinian for those clades there. The E1, B1, A1, A1, C1, A1 is Egyptian, according to these geneticists, right? And it is from your DNA gods. The E-m2 also moved anciently into the Middle East and Mediterranean island groups, seen today in low frequencies in some of these communities, around 1 to 2% occurrence. So King James says he's E1A. Okay. So you have relatives that are doggone. I don't know what the problem is. T. Crumpet says no ancient Indian DNA, only one India's phallic female. Phallic female, I think, has ever been genotyped. Yeah, because it's very hard for them to extract it. But now, oh, this brother SB 1993 says he's E1B1 A1 A1D1. So you match that Palestinian clade here. Ramesses III hasn't been determined what downstream clade of E1B1A he had. Yeah. E-mark is found amongst the Brahmin. What y'all talking about, man? Michael Riddick says, I got a 0.08 trace of Sri Lanka. Don't know what that's about. Well, you got to understand that you do have that Southeast Asian component in East Africa, right? Because of the Indian Ocean trade or whatnot. You do have that there. So it's possibly coming from signals from there. You know, that could be the explanation to that. Let me see if I can get you something on that. Hold on. Let's see if I can pull something up for you real quick on that East African Indian Ocean. And let's see. East African Indian Ocean trade teams. Let's see what pulls up. The genetic legacy of the Indian Ocean slave trade. Well, the Bantu group Luya have been affected by it. Okay. So let's share this. Hold on. Here's the article here, bro. There's the article here, and here's the title. So boom, you got it. Maybe that'll help answer your question. And I'm looking at this map here. It says Aluya. Has the Luya here involved, and I know that's an East African Bantu group. Let me share that. Here it is here. It says here, from the 8th century onward, the Indian Ocean was the scene of extensive trade of sub-Saharan African slaves via sea routes controlled by Muslim, Arab, and Swahili traders. Several populations in present-day Pakistan and India are thought to be the descendants of such slaves, yet their history of admixture and natural selection remains largely undefined. Here we studied the genome-wide diversity of African descent Makranis who reside on the Arabian Sea coast of Pakistan, as well as their 4 neighboring Pakistani populations to investigate the genetic legacy, population dynamics, the tempo of the Indian Ocean slave trade. We show that the Makranis are a result of an admixture event between local Baluch tribes and Bantu-speaking populations from eastern and southeastern Africa. We dated this event to approximately 300 years ago during the Omani Empire domination. Levels of parental relatedness measured through runs of homozygosity were found to be similar across Pakistani populations, suggesting that the Makranis rapidly adopted the traditional practice of endogamous marriages. Finally, we searched for signatures of post-admixture selection and traits evolving on a positive selection, including skin color, lactase persistence, and resistance to malaria. We demonstrate that the African-specific Duffy Noah blood group believed to confer resistance against Plasmodium vivax infection, was recently introduced to Pakistan through the slave trade involved adaptively to the P. vivax malaria endemic region. I studied reconstructed genetic adaptive history of neglected episodes of African diaspora and illustrates the impact of recent admixture and diffusion of adaptive traits across human population. Let me see. Let me go down. Maybe this is why you are getting Sri Lanka and stuff, bro. Could be a key to that. Look, when you look at this map here, I'm gonna blow it up. It has the Luya here. The Luya being involved in this whole debacle. What are y'all talking about? Swahili from Kenya, who also have Persian and Indian. Oh, yeah. That's going on what we're saying. And that also is mentioned in this paper here. Hold on, let me go back to it. Or did I close it? Oh, here it is. Indian Ocean. Share this tab. So right here it says we infer more direct admixture from Eurasian sources in two populations from Kenya, where specifically South Asian populations are the most closely matched surrogates to the minor sources of admixture. Surrogates to the minor sources of admixture. Interestingly, the Chonyi, and it has the dates here 1138 CE to 1080 to 1182 CE, and the Kwama 1225 CE, ranging from 1165 to 1254 CE, are located on the Kenyan Swahili coast, a region where medieval trade across the Indian Ocean is historically documented, which might explain the Asian admixture. Alternatively, Blanche notes that the expansion of Arab shipping down the east coast of Africa in the 10th century CE masked the Austronesian, i.e. Oceania, and Asian influence of the residential coastal culture. The implication is that Austronesians, who are known to have contributed genes to the Madagascan populations, may also have been in East Africa at about this time. Further work on these groups will help to understand whether the events we observed in the Chanya and the Kwama represent the first evidence of Austronesian impact in mainland Africa. So maybe that's why you're getting those pings. Maybe it's an East African ancestor that's getting that ping. Oh, somebody said that? Oh, okay. Said a young Egyptian man stated that he was EU-9 and he was a direct descendant of Ramesses III. On one of our videos, we didn't cover it a lot. I don't remember that. Maybe Eve shared that. King J says, anyone in here with E1A have any doggone ancestry? I've yet to come across any. What are you looking for? What are you looking for specifically? Ahaya, you believe in?
All right, I'm back.
Baruch Hashem Aki. I identify as a West African Jew in America. I am EM5442 paternal and LC1246 maternal. I know that's Fulani. Can you give me a paper that said who's Shem and if he's Ham and Jap? There are no papers like that, bro. There's no paper saying designate who's Shem, Ham, or Japhet. I mean, Nathaniel Jeanson, I guess, is the closest to that because he is a geneticist, but he has a very wacky understanding of the phylogenetic tree. Anyway, nobody clicked the link, by the way. But just ask your question in the chat. I'll try to address it and answer it the best I can.
I guess you got to the end of the video.
What video?
This video. Like you put the link in the chat, so I'm guessing you're almost.
Oh yeah. I'm at the end.
All right. Hold on, I'll be back. Hold on.
Oh, okay, I'm about to ask you a question.
Well, you go ahead and ask it. I'll.
Did we play a video of an Egyptian man saying he was EU-290 and that he descended from Ramesses III?
Did we play a video?
Yeah, I don't remember that.
I don't remember it either. Did somebody say that in the chat?
Yeah, High Be Praised said 2 videos ago a man said that from Egypt.
I can't remember. I don't remember. I don't know.
T and Crumpet says, does Aaron L. Hike belong to an E-clade? He claims Abraham is Anatolian man with E1B1. I don't know Aaron L. Hike's Y DNA. But he says the Israelites could have been E1B1 and T. That's what he says. Anyway, let me look up this doggone stuff because my King James, I don't know what you got against doggone, bro. Doggone genetics. The genetic origin of the doggone population. Oh, that's 1986. I'm not clicking that. The history of the doggone and pre-doggone settlements in West Africa. That's interesting. It looks like it's behind the paywall, though. You can't. How do I read the entire thing? The doggone of the Bundigara escarpment and the Sino Plains in central eastern Mali have been known to inhabit these regions for centuries. However, the history of the doggone and pre-doggone settlements remain incompletely searched and maintained through myth and oral histories. Let me show you what I'm reading here. This workshop brings together researchers from the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History and the University of Geneva, who work jointly to uncover the history of the population settlements in these regions. The workshop will focus on recent advances in retrieval and analysis of ancient human remains and ancient pathogens. We aim to discuss recent findings from genomics, pathogenomics, and biological anthropology to reveal the genetic structure of populations. Moreover, we will explore new avenues and simulations modeling to investigate population continuity in the region using the ancient and modern DNA. Oh, we got Kazak Ben Ariel in the building. What's going on, brother?
Shalom, my king. Baruch Hashem. Yeah, I was just trying to get some information. I just got into the DNA game, EM123, and what I was trying to do is build with brothers that are basically the E marker, because I wanted to find out the blood descendants of the people of the transatlantic slave trade who were of our people from the stock of Israel who weren't, and try to galvanize them together. So I wanted to ask you guys, I know you guys like the geneticists and you deal with the paperwork and everything. Where could I start to begin that journey to learn the subclades and everything else? I don't mind reading. I'm not a brother that that's a KGV only. I'll read a book or two. But if you guys have a video or book, either one, or paper that I can look into so I can learn the basics of the genetics, because I'm just getting into it.
Oh, I always recommend people to get this book here. Let me show you. This to teach yourself genetics, the basics, the building blocks. You're gonna have to get this one here. Hold on, let me pull it up. Pull it up real quick. All right, so let's see if I can grab it real quick for you. So let me share this. So this book here, man, I always recommend get understanding. It's called DNA for Archaeologists. You see it right here?
Gotcha.
It's a quick book you can grab, and it'll teach you the basics of DNA.
Okay, Ken.
DNA for Archaeologists, Elizabeth Madisol Smith. I put it in the chat. You know what I'm saying? On your free time, just read it and read the beginning, the introductory chapters teach you about Y-DNA, mtDNA, the phylogenetic tree, and it'll just give you a basic understanding of how DNA works, how it's inherited, and stuff of that nature.
Okay, told her. So, and I had another question. I saw that someone put a question about, I think it was like the J and the E concept. Could you go deeper into that? Because I'm trying to understand. I know you guys approach it from the mixed multitude, which I agree there's the Torah says it that there was a mixed multitude that left out. But there's no distinguishing way to say who's who. It's just, so you treat it like how we treat it in Judaism, where when you were at Sinai, you were part of the covenant. Is that a safe way to break it
Yeah,
down and frame it?
yeah. So it's two different conversations to be had. One conversation is saying who were a part of the Israelites. Well, the Israelites was a mixed multitude, and like you said, they did enter that covenant. The mixed multitude entered that covenant. Then there's another conversation that we had. Who are the biological descendants of Jacob and who are the biological descendants of Shem? Those are two different things, right? Through our research and what we believe, we're going to give you what we believe because we don't have time machines. We can't go back in time. We believe those that with E markers and, well, DE, so that would include some Japanese people, some Southeast Asian people, some Arabian people, right? And some Europeans come from Shem. They have the best chance of being the descendants of Shem. That's how we break it down.
Okay, okay. And see, I've never been a phenotypical person. I lived in Jordan. I've been to Israel, so I understand that these people, they have a different oral tradition from what you would subscribe to if you're just looking at them. You know, we're taught that people in China and Moabites, all type of crazy stuff. But when you go and you actually see and interview people and you sit down with them, they know the history. We were disenfranchised from ours. So I'm not one that would say, okay, European people wouldn't be an Israelite or a Jew, however people want to identify it as. But I just wanted to know, like, what was the basis of, because all the information that I come across says that the E haplogroup started in sub-Saharan Africa, and they're not giving any real dialogue on, like, giving us any curtains on who we come from and where we are.
I got you. I got you. So there's papers that say that, but there's also papers that say that our ancestors come from Asia. Matter of fact, that was the first argument for YAP, because we call ourselves YAP gang, because we are the people that have this special marker within us called YAP. Nobody else has it, right? Everybody that's the children of DE has the YAP marker. In 1997, Michael Hammer wrote a paper on this, that YAP actually comes from Asia, and it had a resurgence. So let me show you this real quick. But even if we did have our origin in Africa, it don't change anything. But let me show you. Let me share this with you. So a guy named Vicente Cabrera in 2018 published a paper about the Eurasian origins of haplogroup E. Let me grab that real quick. And you should see it on the screen here. And I'm going to drop it in the chat. All right. So, and then I'm going to put the title in the chat. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to this paper, and then we're going to go straight to the relevant portion of it, right? That's the paper here. So I'm going to Control F. I'll type in him. Oh, him, Alea. Well, don't want me to do it, huh? Okay, this is not the free one. Let me go to the free one so you can see the whole goddamn thing. Now let's hard search it. Right here. So it says here, Concerning the potential routes followed by modern humans out of Africa, there are two mutually exclusive main alternatives: a northern dispersal along the Nile-Sinai corridor and a southern dispersal from the Horn of Africa across the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. In early mtDNA phylogeographic studies, the virtual absence of mtDNA in the Levant and its presence in Ethiopia, southern Arabia, the Indian subcontinent, East Asia, rendered M the first genetic indicator of a southern route exit from Eastern Africa. Shortly after these studies, based on the rarity of mtDNA in R in India and its continuous presence above the Himalayas, we propose an additional northern route through the Levant. This is not the part I wanted. Hold on real quick. Let me find it. Above the Himalayas, right here. This is what I wanted. It says here, it talks about our brother Clade here. There are no native D lineages in India, decreasing the possibility that this subcontinent was the center of the DE partition. That just means when we split, which argues against the southern route. It is likely that the divergence of Y chromosome D and E haplogroups occurred up to the Himalayas and in our westward of the Tibet, which coincides with the hypothetical bifurcation. Bifurcation is, again, fancy way of saying two things splitting from one. Center proposed for the mtDNA L3 macrohaplogroup. So what this paper is saying is that DE, which is our ancestors, split into D, haplogroup D. You do find that in the Japanese Ainu people, the Ryukin people as well, and you see them in the Tibetans as well, and you see some northern islanders or northern Southeast Asians. Some of them have it as well. And then you have the E markers, they split. So some people say in East Africa, but this paper is saying that actually E has its origin in Asia, somewhere near the Himalayas.
Okay. Totally.
Yeah. All right, so I put that paper in the chat, man. You got any more questions? I'm gonna have Avery answer the rest of them. Make Avery ass work.
No, that was all. That was all, Lucky. I told her for you brother's time.
Yeah,
Huh,
man.
not today.
No, Avery. No, he gonna ask you some questions, brother. You going to work. Yeah, so this whole segment right here, see, look, Eurasian origin of Y chromosome haplogroup E. And then he goes over what I was telling you earlier. An origin in Asia and return to Africa was proposed long ago for Y chromosome African haplogroup E. That he's talking about 1997 when Michael Hammer first proposed this, right? This hypothesis was based on the derived state of the African YAP haplotypes 4 and 5, which is haplogroup E, with respect to the ancestral YAP positive haplogroup E3, which is haplogroup D. So basically what he was saying is, wait a minute, we got these same people, basically the same genetic signatures in Japan, in Southeast Asia, in Tibet, and then we got these people in Africa with the same marker. So obviously something's going on. They either start in Asia or start in Africa, and they lean towards the Asian origin hypothesis, which is being taught here on this paper.
Okay, totally.
Hey, but Avery, he asked, how do we come to the conclusion that DE is Shem? You want to share some information with this brother?
Yeah. Let me finish chewing my food real quick. All right. So the reason why YAP says haplogroup D, E is Shem is because of one. Dang, he left.
Go ahead and bring it out, bro.
All right. Well, haplogroup DE is YAP positive. So we put those haplogroups together because it's a micro haplogroup anyways. So everybody outside of haplogroup DE is going to have to belong to one of the sons of Noah. A and B is pretty African. It's considered Paleo-African. And there's African hunter-gatherers typically are A and B markers. So we would say that haplogroup A and B is Ham. Then all that's left is the CF lineage, which represents 90% of Eurasian populations. And according to the scriptures, Japheth was the father of most Eurasian peoples like Europeans and peoples of East Asia and Central Asia. So CF will have to be Japheth. And that's one way we use to basically narrow down the haplogroups of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. A and B for Ham, DE for Shem, and CF for Japheth. Now there's another method. The second method is looking at Afroasiatic populations. Most Afroasiatic populations fall under haplogroup E. So we will deduce that that would be Shem, because Semitic is an Afroasiatic language. And the first Afroasiatic peoples, according to most genetic studies, would have been haplogroup E markers. So we will say, hey, haplogroup E, haplogroup DE, which is its brother, microhaplogroup, that would be Shem. And when it comes to, and the third reason, which kind of borrows off the second reason, is that when it comes to the earliest populations that spoke Proto-Afroasiatic languages, that spoke Proto-Semitic languages, these Stone Age cultures would have been Cambrian and Natufian and Ibero-Maurusian. These would have been the ancestors of early Afroasiatic speakers. And so we would deduce that, hey, since these Neolithic Stone Age cultures are some of the earliest ancestors and the earliest first speakers of Proto-Afroasiatic, then we'll have to say, yeah, these will be the early descendants of Shem after the flood. Because after the flood, people will be using stone tools, stone weapons, because everything is gone. So you have to start with rocks and rebuild civilization. And so it just so happens that these Natufians and Ibero-Maurusians have very ancient words for like fire and water and rock and stuff like that would eventually become Proto-Semitic. There's papers on that. So those are like the three reasons for why we would say haplogroup DE is Shem. And there's probably others. I'm just not thinking of it right now. But yeah, is there anything you have? Any other reasons that you got, Yeshua?
I mean, there's several reasons arguments and we can go down. One being the Jewish tradition that Africa actually comes from a son of Shem. Either comes from a son of Shem or a son of Abraham. Either way is the same. You're saying the same thing. The name Africa, right? The African people. The Afri people. The Afri people are mainly what? They're the Amazigh. What is the dominant haplogroup amongst those people? They're downstream clades of E1, B1, B. So there's several ways to slice it, man. Looking at it from a biblical lens. He says, can you cut this part into his own short video afterwards, please? What part? The question, yes, the questions? What part? What part are you talking about? But yeah, so if you look at and even those guys answering Genesis, that's so funny to see Nathaniel Jeanson's breakdown, the way he breaks it down. It's like,
by the way, after the show, we still haven't privately talked about what went down. I want to talk to you about it. Let's not speak too bad of Jensen. Let me just put it that way. Let's not go too much into him.
All right, I'm just saying, man. Because one of his colleagues, he did a book on the sons of Noah or whatever. And he basically was like, North Africa would be Shem's, And, going off of the Jewish tradition that Africa gets its name from a son of Shem or a son of Abraham. So going off that tradition, then you just look at what haplogroup best fits that. And then, again, a downstream clade of E1, B1, B dominates North Africa, and it dominated within the last 2,000 to 3,000 years. It's very young. So it's possible, man. It's very, very possible.
It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible.
So T and Crumpet says, what about those that say, well, if E was present in the land first, then it's Canaan? That don't make no sense because By the time the Israelites get there and it's designated Canaan and they're going to war with the Canaanites, it is heavily influenced by haplogroup J markers. So what are you going to then say? Oh, J is Canaan? No.
Some people try to say that, by the way.
Yeah, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. I think the original Canaanites, again, so this is why time is very important. Time is very important. So it depends on how you view the world. If you view the world being 6,000 years, okay, then that's a problem you got to deal with. That's not my view. If you view that all humans stem back 4,400 years ago, then that's a problem you got to deal with. That's not my view. I put Noah 150,000 years ago. So those populations have been very different than what they are 10,000 years ago, if you get what I'm saying. But yeah, when you get to the point of time of the conquest of Canaan, and it's a multitude of different, the 7 nations or 7 kingdoms, or however you want to put it, that were taken down by Joshua according to the narrative, those people would have been heavily influenced and introgressed by J markers. At that time, Canaan would have been Japhet. Okay, T. Crumpet says, is the Table of Nations only a Christian biblical thing? Table of Nations only a Christian. I'm trying to process what are you actually asking here. So I'm going to answer this the best way I can. So the Table of Nations, the way people read the Table of Nations, they look at it like every event is a way to measure time. So they'll say, okay, this dates back to 6,000 years. I don't view it like that. I view it as telescope genealogies, meaning you only name the people. You only name the people of importance of that lineage. For example, when you read the lineage of Moses, you only see the important people or the people that are pointed out. What did you say, Rail Ruge? You said teaching during the Super Bowl pregame. You're not right, dog. If them boys was playing, you'd be at a party. I'm gonna have to catch the rest after my Birds win. Hey, check this out, man. I'm happy for Philadelphia. I think they're gonna win tonight. I don't think Kansas City got enough ammo. You know what I'm saying? Enough fuel in the tank to beat y'all. Y'all got, you know what y'all got, man. AJ Brown. You got 2 studs running the damn ball. Come on, man. That offensive line is protecting your quarterback, and you really got a halfback as a quarterback. So really, this dude can do QB dives and tear up the team. So y'all got it, bro. But nah, man. You NFC East at the end of the day, we got the most championships out of any other division, bro. My Cowboys ain't got there in 30 years, man. I can't hate on nobody, man. So he says here, Chief Kazak says, Toda Aki, one last question. I know Egypt was like the Americas, and many people ruled it. How do we reconcile that Ramesses III, my research would have him ruling in the time of the judges? What do you think, brothers think? He could have just been a leftover. If you try to say if he was an Israelite or something, he could easily just been a leftover or a lineage that leaked out. It could be a lineage that leaked out. It could be people that moved back to Egypt. I mean, there's various ways you can explain that. Can I explain it definitively? No, because again, I don't own a time machine. But yes, that could possibly be a leftover of that ruling class or peoples that existed before him, or leaked out down south. I really think that he's the grandson of that Syrian that was ruling during that time. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Let's see, what else did I miss here? King James says, if you believe the Bible, the earth's only 60,000 years. Sorry, but that's facts. No, it's not fact. Show me in the Bible where it says the earth is 6,000 years. No, that's implied because you're adding up genealogies. Those genealogies are telescoped, bro. It's a repeated theme in the Bible to telescope genealogies, meaning you only name the ones you want to name or the ones important to contributing to the said person. That's why you see more about Abraham's lineage than any other lineage, because he's the most important figure in the narrative. They're not naming everybody in between. Sometimes they skip like 5 generations. Like this person descends from Noah, or this person descends from Moses. Like, wait a minute, you just skip the 5 people in between. That's called telescoping genealogies. And also,
All right, I'm back.
King James, also, how do you explain, like, all right, so when you go here, let's go to Genesis. How do you explain these things in 4,400 years? Genesis 10. I think it's Genesis 10 or 11. Let me go to it. Read the NLT. How do you explain these things? Because in Genesis 10 and onward, you have the Tower of Babel concept. And the Tower of Babel concept is the splitting and diversifying of people, right? They split up, languages diversify. Afro-Asiatic is older than 4,400 years ago. Austronesian is older than Austro-Asiatic is older than 4,400 years ago. Indo-European is older than 4,400 years ago. You see what I'm getting at? So language is split long before those time periods. It does not match the narrative. It's a better fit to put Noah 150,000 years ago. It's a way better fit. If he is the father of all living, he has to live during that time frame. Anything younger does not work, especially 4,400 years ago, bro. You said the earth is created in 7 literal days. That doesn't make any sense, bro. But even if it was created in 7 literal days, it has nothing to do with anything. It has nothing to do with anything. It has nothing to do with whether or not Noah lived 4,400 years ago or if he lived 150,000 years ago. We're talking about after the creation.
Yeah. If the earth was created in 7 days, the earth could still be old. Like it could be created in 7 days and still be an old earth. I believe that it was created in 7 days and still believe the earth could be at least 100,000 years old. But I do have young earth dates. The youngest I put the earth is 11,600 years ago. The younger Darius. That's the youngest I put it. 11,000. And that's crunching, that's crunching history.
Right.
That's why I have to go with rapid radiation if you're going to go with that.
Right. Super rapid, man.
But I definitely can't go 6,000. That's hard. That would be impossible, actually.
They working with less time. They working with 4,400 years.
Yeah,
they put Noah 2,400 BCE.
Yeah, that's almost impossible.
I want you to
put the link in for people that might want to verbally explain their views.
Yeah, here you go, King James, brother. Look, explain this one verse to me in 4,400 years. Did this happen 4,400 years ago? At one time, all people of the world spoke the same language. Explain that with 4,400 years. Because if I go 4,400 years ago, I'm going to show you people are already speaking different languages. It don't make any sense. That makes no sense, bro. Explain that to me with a 4,400 year old time span.
And also, we put the link in the chat if you wanted to come up and show sources or explain your points verbally, because I know texting and typing takes a long time. You can't get everything out in the text or typing. So if you want to verbally explain your points, you can. We're giving you the green light. But would you consider bumping your time period back a few thousand years? Like instead of 6,000 years, could you at least go with 12,000 years and having everything start with the younger Darius? because that's the youngest I can put the Earth is with the Younger Darius, which was around 11,600 years ago. So 11,600 years ago would have been the global flood if you go with the younger Earth, the youngest that I can go with. And then before,
Now, what were you saying?
before 11,600 years ago, at some point, Adam would have been born in some unknown time period. So Adam could have been born 12,000 years ago, 13,000 years ago, 14,000 years ago, whenever. But the flood did happen at 11,600 years ago. That is one thing we can date because that's when the Younger Darius happened. As a matter of fact, if I could, I would show videos of the Younger Darius, but
You're going to get us tagged.
yeah, but we might get flagged.
You get us flagged.
So you have to do that on your own, but look up the Younger Darius. I've done videos on it actually, but so you can watch my video. Actually, you could play my videos because you shouldn't get copyright strikes by me.
Right. King James says, before the flood, man spoke one language. Languages became expanded at the Tower of Babel. Okay, what time frame is this? You can't say 4,400 years ago because there were people speaking Afro-Asiatic, Nilo-Saharan. There were people speaking Indo-European. There were people speaking a multitude of Austroasiatic languages. You know what I'm saying? The Khoikhoi had the little click languages going on. Like, there was a multitude of languages during that time. It don't make any sense. And then this is supposed to be a narrative or a story or that's reflecting human dispersal events. Did human dispersal events happen 4,400 years ago? No. Humans dispersed tens of thousands of years ago. T. Crumpets is shooting at you. Said, Eva, I guess you believe in Graham Hancock and Atlantis.
Yeah, I know who he's coding. I actually had that theory before I learned about the whole Atlantis thing with the Richard structure or whatever it's called and all that. So I just want to put that out there. I had this view before I learned that because I have been watching YouTube videos and I was like, oh, some people actually kind of go with this. It's a good hypothesis, by the way. I'm not going to lie. It is somewhat convincing. But, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
King James says, keep it as simple and count back from Adam. No, it don't work like that. Because explain these events in 4,400 years. Explain humans dispersing in 4,400 years. Explain language dispersal in 4,400 years. Explain it.
Yeah, you should. Can you pull up a map of the timeline of world? Actually, let's do it better than that. Can you pull up a timeline of Homo sapiens sapien history, basically from the Paleolithic to the Common Era? Can you pull that up? Because we need to visualize this and ask him, when was ages like the Stone Age and the Chalcolithic and the Bronze Age, like when did these ages occur? Can you pull that up?
Mm-hmm.
I guess you can just type in like human timeline, Stone Age to the Common Era, something like that.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now.
Some charts are better than others, but
I think this is a good one.
And so when your shoe pulls it up, I'm just going to ask, when would you place everything? When? Yeah, that's a good one. I've used that one in my videos before. Yeah. So we see that there's an ice age about 12,000 years ago. I believe that's a result after the flood, because when the water came back down from coming out of the sky with when the tectonic plates broke apart and the fountains of the deep broke open, water shooting out from the ground and coming back to the ground, that water would have froze. And that's why we have the North Pole and South Pole, those giant ice glaciers. So that was the Ice Age 12,000 years ago. So you have to explain what's your Ice Age. Also, farming and agriculture. When did that start? That would have happened in the Neolithic. I think the Neolithic is dated to 10,000 years ago. So that's shortly after the Ice Age. And then you have the Chalcolithic after the Neolithic. Chalcolithic is the Copper Age. And then you have the Bronze Age after that. And that's the time period of Abraham. Abraham, I believe, was in the Middle Bronze Age. And that's about 4,000 years ago, I think. So actually, that's kind of where the issue comes into play, because Abraham would have lived at least 4,000 years ago. And that's when people are saying the flood happened. So the flood would happen when Abraham was born, which would kind of be an issue. That's why it'd be better if. Wait, hold on. What do you say?
He said, no, Ice Age, this was all the impact of the flood. So show us this 4,400 years ago. And I necessarily don't agree with the Young Dryas thing, right? My flood is much older. So, but my thing is this, like, show us this in your time frame. That's all.
We'll put the link back down so you can come up again. Or if anybody else want to come up and explain their timeline of the Earth. It doesn't have to just be you, King James, but if anybody else want to come up, explain your belief. Anybody in the chat?
Yeah, we're just trying to do our best to reflect reality. That's all. If the Bible is a true narrative, then it has to reflect what we see, right? Let me share this real quick.
Brightside thinks the Richard structure is Atlantis. Graham Hancock differs from Randall Carlson, who believes it was between Africa and the Americas. I'm almost somewhat convinced of Atlantis being the Richard structure in Mauritania. The only issue I had initially was it's so far inland to the point that, like, was there even water there? But then I saw that there could have been evidence of water there. I think the idea of Atlantis being in the Richard structure could make sense, because if it was there 10,000 years ago, then that would have been the time period of the Green Sahara. And there would have been lakes in North Africa. So it is somewhat convincing, because I always believe that the Atlantis story could just been a story made up by the Greeks or the Egyptians of the pre-flood world, like the flood that happened in the Bible. But it could be a post-flood civilization. But I'm still debating on that. I still don't know if I believe in it all, but it's definitely interesting and somewhat convincing. But I don't know. Do you know about any of that, Yeshub? The Richard structure and Atlantis and Mauritania and stuff like that?
No, I have no clue about that.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
But I want to show this with the people here, right? So I did a whole video on the YAP game channel explaining this. So if Noah was indeed a real person, and he is indeed the progenitor of all extant humans, these things will have to be true. Noah, according to biblical narrative, is the last recent common ancestor of all extant human beings, which is Homo sapiens sapiens. That would have to be true. In order for that to be true, he would have to live long ago to be the progenitor of all Homo sapiens sapiens. He would have to be at the top or at the base of the tree, not somewhere along the branches. So right here it says Noah's DNA would have to be at the base of the phylogenetic tree, being that he is the progenitor of all of extant human beings. If the narrative is true and he really is a real person and he is a progenitor of all extant people, he would have to be somewhere around here. As a result, Noah's timeline must fall within the time frame of the ancestor of all extant human beings around 200 to 100,000 years ago. That's the only way it works, because that gives you enough time for diversifying of people, dispersal of people, and language dispersal. And here's a tree here. right? He would be the root, and we would be the branches. And again, the best fit is 150, 200,000. Someone said here, I might be tripping, but how is it that some of the DNA is more than 275,000 years ago? So the reason why you have different dates and older dates is because they use different mutation rates, right? And it gives a slower mutation rate gives older dates, a fast mutation rate gives younger dates. So they're talking about the same thing. So it'd be like 100, like they'll say Y chromosome on Adam and mitochondrial Eve is between 200 and 100,000, or they'll say what you're saying, 275 or 300,000. It's because of different mutational rates are used. It's the same principle, right?
I'll put Adam, like if I go for an old Earth, I'll put Adam at 100,000 years ago. If I went with an old Earth. Remember, I have 3 different Earth timelines for my Earth.
So here's a chart from Claudius Saul's book, DNA Genealogy. And in his chart, he uses a lot here. He breaks down DE. He says DE is Middle Eastern haplogroup. F through T is Europeoids, and BT, I guess he would put as Paleo-Africans. And you can see A, haplogroup alpha, as he calls it, splits into these 3 distinct A branches, and then BT, then B, C, D, E1A, E1B, and all the rest of the haplogroups. The point is, Noah would have to be somewhere here to be the father of all of these branches. He would have to be here. And look, he has that dated to 160,000 years ago. It just makes sense, man. Noah's bottleneck. So then when you're talking about a flood, when did that flood happen? I think it happened between 100 and 200,000 years ago. And that was a study that was released in 2018, and physics covered it. It says the study most startling result perhaps is that 9 out of 10 species on Earth today, including humans, came into being 100 to 200,000 years ago. How does one explain the fact that 90% of animal life, genetically speaking, is roughly the same age? Was there some catastrophic event 200,000 years ago that nearly wiped the slate clean? And the source of the Sweeping Gene Survey reveals new facets of evolution by Marlo Hood, physics.org. That's where I would put a more realistic model of this happening, you know. Anyway, y'all can watch the whole video where I cover all this stuff. Let me go to the summary. And this is how I believe the dispersal happened, somewhere in that shady green area. I think somewhere close to the Himalayas, according to me. All human groups dispersed. They were all together at once. If they were communicating, that means they all had one language. Again, this would have happened 100 to 200,000 years ago, not 4,400 years ago. That's when this would have happened. You see, all people groups would have split, and diverged. They were once converged, and then they split. The above describes coincidence. Well, I'm not gonna read all that. Let me go down. My summation of this whole thing: Noah would have to be placed 100 to 200,000 years ago for the following reasons. Noah's progeny is stated to repopulate the earth. This would mean all human groups would converge to Noah's lineage, which makes Noah Y chromosomal Adam. The origin of languages would stem back to 100,000 to 200,000 years, which would be in line with the biblical narrative. Because remember, it says that everybody spoke the same language. It says a possible bottleneck, Noah's flood that greatly reduced almost all animal species occurred 100 to 200,000 years ago. The date of Noah's flood being 400 years ago is irreconcilable with all things considered. Human diversification, universal bottleneck, language diversification, etc. All right, so that's that on that. You can go to the YAP Game channel, subscribe to it, and watch my entire breakdown of that and why I believe, because all I can do is believe, that Noah's timeline actually fits better 100 to 200,000 years ago. Yosef says, could you explain ghost DNA? Okay, so ghost DNA is DNA that certain people have in their genomes that can't be matched with a known genome. So what they would do is postulate, where did this DNA come from? And if it looks old, they will say, okay, this is probably archaic. The ghost DNA that they found in West Africans, they postulate that it could be a sister branch of Neanderthal. So that's where you get ghost DNA. It's just an unidentified segment of DNA that we can't match with any known populations or any known ancient DNA.
Nah, brother, it's the Nephilim.
Real Ruger, I believe in a global flood, bro. He said, how did all the seawater salt get on top of the mountains in the structure, if not the flood? Well, here's another thing, too. Old people that believe that the earth is old, very old, 4 billion years old, they will just tell you that the mountains are underneath the sea at first, and then after like a collision of plates, the mountains rise and emerge and bring everything from the bottom of the sea up as it rises. That's how they explain that. Let's see. What do you think about this, Avery?
Mankind is not from Noah. Why? Spirit wise. What do you mean? What does he mean by that?
I don't know. I was like, let me let my young bull head of that one, man.
Mankind is not from Noah. Spirit wise. What does he mean by spirit wise? That's the thing that got me. Spirit wise. No, I can't answer that because he didn't even say by blood. He said by spirit. Like I don't even know what that means. We're not spiritually from Noah. Like it ain't
Rudy,
like he's Christ or something.
Rudy said, I don't believe in that Bible, damn it. I don't believe in none of that bullshit. Like, fuck you niggas. Rudy said, I can't really accept the biblical narrative or the story of Noah and his 3 sons. I think it's possible that there was proto-Abrahamic religion in the Horn of Africa, which migrated north.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Rudy, you get a cookie. Anyway,
that would especially make sense if you put the origins of Proto-Afro-Asiatic and haplogroup E in the Horn of Africa, which some people do.
Nobody gave a damn about what we covered today, huh?
Nope. I'll be back. Hold on.
Just see if I missed something, man. What did I miss, y'all? And pose your questions towards Avery, man. I'm tired of answering questions. Avery gonna answer all the questions, bro. Avery, get ready, bro. Well, we get ready to shut it down. Y'all better hurry up and ask these questions. I'm about to get off of here. Yeah, it's all love, King James. Ain't no love lost. I'll just stroll it through the messages, see if I miss some. See, King James, I don't know about all that, man. Like all the other things you need for that statement to make sense is just not there. Man, events been happening like that as long as I've been living, bro. And every time something happens, the world go in. Now y'all seeing Chinese balloons getting shot down. Now everybody's saying the world going in. 10 years ago, it was something else. 10 years before that was something else. The world going in. Every time stuff gonna happen, bro. Like we living on everything ain't rainbows and marshmallows. Stuff been happening. Wars been happening. Infighting's been happening. Tragedy happens, bro. It is what it is. Life goes on. Anybody else with anything before we get out of here? Table Nation. I'm thinking we covered that. Let me show y'all this real quick before we get out of here. I found very interesting. I already knew, but the fact that they put this in this paper. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so they had a BT marker that was later derived to be B2B1 in this paper here. Let me give it to y'all here. Let me put it in the chat. And it was found in the Levant, actually. Avery will be back here shortly. So let me share this with y'all before I get out of here. This better one is E1B1B. E1B1B. When you go to the A and B, look. I don't know how well y'all can see that. Let me see if I can blow this up. If you go to the A and B markers here, and then there's one over here in the Levant right here. That's a B marker. A B2A. It's real grainy, man. I hate that they didn't. Okay, there it is. I believe it's this one right here. The B2B1. And it's related to the LWK. It has the same marker or stems from the same ancestor as the Baraka pygmy. Y'all see that? B2B1. If you trace it, I think it's this one. Hold on. Let me make sure I'm tracing it correctly. Oh, B2A1. My bad. Right here. B2A1. Bedouin. And it's a B marker right here. Boom. All right. Just want to show you that. A lot of this stuff is ancient, so I want to show y'all that real quick. I thought it was very interesting. There's no more questions, man. I'm out of here. Yeah, shout out to your E1A ancestry, brother. Shalom. I gave y'all this paper too. Y'all got it. What do you get a title? This is what Abu then was looking at. I was reading it. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Placing ancient DNA sequences into reference phylogenies. And there's the paper link there. All right, we out of here, man. Avery ain't coming back. Just remember, 7 candlesticks up, and I've been telling you niggas, it ain't a debate. It's a stick up gang.
I done did some shit that you ain't never did. I done saw some shit that you ain't never seen. I done been some places you ain't never been. I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. 4 nigga with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoes. I was another team. I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. 4 nigga with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoes. I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw
some shit that you ain't saw before. Spurred a nigga in the jaw before. Took off running from the law before. I was selling OG by the dollar store. Used to get that Reggie from Hilario. That was middle school, like in 6th grade. I was cutting the Philly with a switchblade. I knew I was destined for a big play. I knew I was destined for a mixtape. I've been kicking flavors since the talent show. Had a fully loaded automatic flow. What's a fully loaded automatic flow? When I spit the verses like a calico. Watch me spit the verse like a calico. Running let your mama and your daddy know. Seven shots. I am something to run and tell about. They thought I was smoking airplane gas, cause I'm jumping fly in the helicopter. 800 for the Louis Shades up in North Park just to look smart. Money caller with the T-top on the long horse and the push start.
I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. 4 nickel with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoot out with the other team. I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. 4 nickel with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoot out with the other team.
Really fuck, nigga. No man, give it up, nigga. Shot it out, let it bust, hit him. Did it all for a check killer. I was broke, I was sick, digging licks in the brick with a stick. Have a split, serving nicks to a zip. Take the drill, 30 big boys in a big clip. Out of town, serving at the quick trip. Ain't no hoe, ain't no hoe. This fofo, gon' blow. My grind big, you a small joke. I'm still into that mud. That wet dirt, give a fuck. I did the most in these damn streets. Having news in these back streets. Ain't no nigga real like me. Hard time made a stiff G. Serving 80s just to eat. Mama called it cause the work cheap. Sucker niggas wanna murk me. Had to get it, had to go see. Let these niggas know it ain't peace. I'm a damn fool if you want these.
I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. 4 nickel with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoot out with the other team. I done did some shit that you ain't never did. Saw some shit that you ain't never seen. Been some places you ain't never been. Sip, drink, you don't never lean. 4 nickel with a 30 clip, big Glock 9 with a red beam. I done been broke, I done had money, I done had shoot out with the other team.